Last week I was stuck at Vienna airport. It was awesome. I had good Wi-Fi, great coffee, even Spotify worked, amazingly, and I had a very productive day. Interestingly enough, some people on Twitter asked me, why don't you go to Vienna city center and do some sightseeing or something? And I thought, excuse me, why do you stay at your office and why don't you go home and spend some time with your family or something? We all have work to do, I suppose. To me, this is proof that people think, well, he's not at the office, so he can't be working. He might as well do some sightseeing and go see an opera or eat a Sachertorte or something like that. It's crazy. Hello world, this is Jurgen Appelo, and I'm here to talk about remote working. And somebody who knows all about remote working is Lisette Sutherland. Hello, Lisette.
Hi, Jurgen. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, it's great that you're here. I saw on your blog that you had several posts with the word remote in it, like remote working, remote coaching, remote support, technical support or something. So what is remote working? Tell me about that.
Well, for me, remote working is not having to work in any particular place. So it doesn't necessarily mean working from home. It doesn't necessarily mean working in the office. It just means that you're not tied to one particular place every day.
Okay, so is anyone who is not in the office a remote worker then? Is a truck driver a remote worker?
Funny, I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday. It actually came up. And so, yes, I would actually put truck drivers in the remote working category. Or, I mean, you could also put taxi cab drivers, for that matter, in the remote working category. And I don't know the ins and outs of exactly how truck drivers and cab drivers organize themselves, but they must have some sort of central communication system with the headquarters or their colleagues and a way to find out what the next job is. So yes, I would put them in that category. And something you said in your last blog post, it was a quote that you took from the Why Managing Sucks and How to Fix It book, was work is not a place where you go, it's something that you do. And I really loved that quote, and I think it's very applicable here.
Yeah, I think so too, and I've been thinking about that this weekend, and I came up with many examples of people in professions that I have little experience with, but that I realized they're not in offices, like photographers. Are photographers remote workers? They have locations to go to take pictures of, and that's the work that they do. How about writers like me? Well, I have some experience in that area. I can write anywhere. My work is where my computer is. So I've been inspired like you by that quote, and I thought maybe we should get rid of the word remote. How do you feel about that?
I thought that was a very good point. It was, why don't we just start focusing on what work is getting done instead of how long you've worked or where you've done the work? Just, is the job getting done?
How about location-independent worker or something like that? It's not catchy, isn't it?
Exactly. I've been trying to think of a name myself because I was inspired by that post, but so far remote working is just what's stuck in my head. But as soon as I think of something, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
We need a new name for remote workers.
I thought when I read that book that you referred to, Why Managing Sucks, that the words, I agreed with the idea that the remote worker puts workers in a category. Like they are not like the normal workers, and there's danger in that. If you put people in categories, you put labels on them, and they are not the normal workers, so to speak, and that could lead to resentment. That could lead to segregation. I'm quite sure. Fortunately, I haven't experienced it myself because I'm self-employed. The only person to be resentful at is me, but I'm quite sure it will be different for other people.
Indeed.
So another question: how do you know if remote workers are really working? This is a question that many managers struggle with. If they're not working at the office, if I don't see them sitting at the office chair and make noises like this on the keyboard, then how do I know that they're actually doing productive work? What's your idea about that?
Two things pop into my mind immediately. One is there's a trust issue. That is the first thing that pops into my mind. But the second is, well, how do we know that work is getting done in the office? Which is, we know because the job's getting done. And with remote working, it may require more communication, but there's plenty of great online project management tools and online collaboration tools that companies can use to assess the workload. The other thing that also comes to mind is that people can start working in a more agile way. So what I mean by that is we can start working in shorter sprints, for example. It doesn't need to be a development team. It can be a marketing team. It can be an HR team. So we can work in a shorter time cycle and then also have some sort of variation of the daily stand-up so that we are talking every day and people know what we're working on. There's a concept that I read about last year that I love, and it's by a man in Germany called John Stepper. It's a great blog, by the way, that I recommend. And I don't know if it's something that he coined, but he calls it working out loud. And that is where he encourages the people that he works with to post what they're working on. And some people have an online collaboration tool like Yammer, and they're posting what they're working on all day. I've been in companies where we just use our Skype status and we just write what we're working on in the moment. Some people then will be prompted to, hey, you're working on this document. I have some great information I can send you, or, hey, I can see that you're really focused and I know this task is important, thus I'm not going to interrupt you right now. But I love this concept of working out loud because then we're really sharing with our colleagues what we're doing more often. And I think that's how we know if the work's getting done.
Well, I really like that concept, working out loud. I think I'm working out loud because many people complain about my Twitter feed being too noisy, so that might qualify. But that's a good suggestion. Is there anything else that people should think of that when they want to be a remote worker, if they want to make the transition from being a regular office worker to a remote worker, what other things do they have to keep in mind to make that work?
One thing I would say is start small. I mean, if your company has never done it before, I would start with a small group of people, maybe start with 1 day a week or one afternoon a week. But really with remote working, it's a matter of communication and commitment. So the communication needs to be there, it needs to be light and not in the way. And the people, the team, needs to be committed to making it work. And I would say if you've got a team right now that's not communicating well, then remote working is only going to amplify that problem. Putting distance between a team that already doesn't communicate well in the office will just amplify the problem. So those tools just need to be put in place to be there, and the commitment needs to be there from the team. I worked with a woman in California for 3 years, helping her with technical support. I was in the Netherlands, she was in California. She just happened to wake up at 6 in the morning and start working, which was around 3 p.m. in the afternoon for me. So what I did is we just started, I started working from around 2 in the afternoon until 10 at night. That's what I decided to do. That way we had about 6 hours together of overlap. And we were committed to making it work. I kept my Skype status extremely accurate. I knew that it would matter to her if I was gone for even 10 minutes, so I would say, I'm on a 10-minute walk, I'll be back. And I was back. So those are I think that the working out loud, keeping your Skype or whatever tool you're going to be used, but keeping your status accurate so that people know where you are and being responsive, those are the keys. It's not difficult. It's not difficult to do. It just takes a few little things.
All right. Okay. Well, that makes total sense. Now, what about the people who are still in the office? Suppose they want to make remote working work for everyone. Maybe they're not themselves remote workers, but they have some team members who work remotely. What can they do to make it work on their team? Do they have to make some changes?
I think just communicating more often and not forgetting that your remote workers exist. I've also worked in companies and where I was the only remote worker, and you know, the company would go out for dinner, and of course I wasn't included because I couldn't be included. But for instance, I also worked at a company where they had a holiday party, and at that time I happened to be working co-located there at the company, so I was at the party. But we set up a Skype screen for the remote workers so that they could also be there. So they would, I mean, they were there on Skype, but they were also in the living room, and we could just sit down and talk to them, and it actually worked remarkably well. So there's just little things to do, but it's all about communication.
Okay, so that sounds great. So it's making them feel that they're still part of what is going on, even though they're not there. Because I did read in several articles on remote working that this is one of the big dangers of remote workers, that they're feeling left out. That whenever they come at the office, that they have to find out where the printer is, or that their pass doesn't work to get into the building at all, or things like that. So there are plenty of things that you should be doing to make people feel welcome when they are in the office. Then they should feel as if they're really coming home among friends. You mentioned a couple of things that might be necessary for a remote worker, like being disciplined at keeping up your status, keeping your status updates accurate, and working out loud. Do we need certain kinds of people? Is it only people like you and me, Lisette, who can do this, or can everyone be a remote worker?
Well, I'm not going to say it takes a special kind of person, but I know it's not for everyone. And that is, there is a certain amount of discipline that's necessary. You have to have the discipline to get the work done. But I would say that if you don't have the discipline to get the work done at home, you probably don't have the same discipline to get the work done at work. But then there's also a group of people who really need or like to be around other people all the time. And for me, I'm very extroverted. I like being around people, but I also like to, when I need to focus, I really need to focus, and I need to be alone in order to do that. But I know plenty of other people that need to be around other people. Or if you have a situation in where you don't have a good office environment or a good environment in which you can work. One of my colleagues lives in a student house where he has, I think, 8 roommates or something, and a low bandwidth for the internet. In that situation, it wouldn't be good to work from home, or people that don't have the space in their homes. They have children and they don't have a particular office space. So there's circumstances which aren't ideal, but I think in terms of it doesn't take a special person. It just takes somebody who has discipline and focus and communication and a good workspace.
Okay, well, that makes sense. What time did you get up this morning, Lisette? I
got up at 6:30 this morning.
Oh my God, I got up at 8. Okay, so you beat me to that. But I thought it was quite disciplined getting up at 8. So I can subscribe to that part of what is necessary to be a remote worker. But I found it interesting that you said that you're an extrovert, because I'm an introvert. So it seems that at least both introverts and extroverts can work remotely. But for me, for example, I love the fact that I can be alone at an airport a whole day and just ignore basically everyone. And that doesn't bother me at all. But how do you deal with that, being an extrovert? Because you need people around you.
I have both. I'm both. If I look at the Myers-Briggs, I'm actually 50-50 between introvert and extrovert. So there's certain circumstances. For instance, I'm working on an onboarding process for a client where I need to figure out where are people getting stuck in the software. So I'm essentially on a 26-inch monitor. I've got a giant spreadsheet open with all kinds of numbers, and I'm looking for patterns or anomalies. And in those circumstances, I absolutely need to be alone without interruption. I have to just be able to look and focus. And in terms for my extrovert tendencies, I do like being with people. That's something that I need. But I worked from home all by myself for over 10 years, and what I found was the video interaction that I had with my colleagues was plenty. There's times when I'm on video, either Hangouts or Skype or GoToMeeting, various types of webinars, that I do that for 4 or 5 hours a day. And at the end of the day, I'm exhausted, and I feel like I've gotten my fair share of social interaction. And if I really need to be amongst people, I can always go to a coffee shop or go for a walk or spend time with friends. I don't find that the remote working prevents my extroverted tendencies. Okay,
awesome. So that's my answer that's the answer to my question. I have 9 seconds left, Lisette. Let's extend that with 1 minute. What is your favorite location to be working?
I have to say I have a love. I'm in my home office right now, and I love it here. It's quiet, it's warm, I have my music, I have everything I need. I absolutely love it here. It's like my little tree house.
Well, it's the same for me. This is my home. As you can see, I have just a few of my books behind me. The rest is in another office, my other home back in Rotterdam. Many more books, but that's my favorite place. My second favorite place is anywhere I can get good coffee.
Exactly.
I think you agree with me on that one. All right. So thank you, Lisette. I have a little card for you. Look.
Hey, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So thank you for joining in the 15 minutes on air today, and have fun working tonight. I know who you'll be hanging out with. That includes me, I hope. And next week I'm going to talk with somebody else. I don't know yet who, but we'll see. Goodbye, world.